We're just finished another FA Cup weekend, and it was a surprisingly good one, because usually we complain that the FA Cup weekend is sort of a lull and a bit boring and a break from the Premier League, but this weekend was actually pretty good. And of course there are some winners and losers, and again I'm joined in studio by Phil Egan to run through them. Phil, how are you?
Well, yeah, all good.
We're starting with an Irish player.
Yeah.
A young Irish player. We said that he might get a chance in the FA Cup, and boy did he take it. Idah.
Yeah. What is it? Less than 2 minutes and he had his first goal at senior level for Norwich. Given a start, scores a hat-trick, and obviously the third goal to wrap up the hat-trick was a penalty, but he was actually taken down for it, so he nearly rounded the keeper, who incidentally, by the way, is Stuart Ripley's son, Conor Ripley. Stuart Ripley, a iconic footballer from the 90s, won a Premier League with Blackburn, and now works as a solicitor. But Idah, what we've seen from him playing for the Ireland under-21s, he's been very, very good. He's different, obviously, to Troy Parrott, and Stephen Kenny obviously rates him so highly that he's put Parrott out in the left to accommodate and make sure that Idah plays down the middle. He's quick, but his strength, he's physical. He's still only 18.
Well, that's the thing that kind of stands out for him straight away. When you see him on a football pitch against under-21s, he looks like a fully grown man. And when he stepped up to the FA Cup into the senior team for Norwich, he didn't look out of place at all.
No, and that's got Mick McCarthy thinking, I'm sure, because I know Mick McCarthy was on TV. He was on pundit duty for the Wolves-Manchester United game. He was asked about him, and it's hard to ignore. One thing that the Irish senior team is not doing at the moment is scoring goals. We scored 7 goals in our 8 group games. One of them was an own goal. So 6 players scored goals in a campaign that had a group with Georgia and Gibraltar. So 3 of those goals, 3 of the 7 goals were against Gibraltar. So we don't score goals, and if you've got this young lad that's scoring goals, I'm not saying you throw him in against Slovakia, but definitely worth looking at in training. We know he's going to be joining up with the under-21 squad. Obviously the 21s are going so well, so that's a conversation Mick McCarthy and Stephen Kenny have to have.
Well, that's the thing. Do you think Mick McCarthy was just saying that because he was put on the spot on the TV that Idah actually has a chance to play against Slovakia? Or is it a bit of waste of him? Because Stephen Kenny's side have a great chance of qualifying top of the group into the Euros. And we saw in the last game they took Troy Parrott away, and they weren't quite as good as they can be.
So then they brought him back in, though, for the game against Sweden. So that's, I'm not sure the exact scheduling of the Slovakia game and the next qualifier for the 21s, but Mick McCarthy's not going to throw him in. Mick McCarthy's going to stick pretty much with the same 11, bar 1 or 2 changes, maybe players unavailable, but he has a one-off game to get into another one-off game, so there's no way he's going to take the risk. Imagine throwing an 18-year-old in. He didn't do it with Aaron Connolly in Georgia, and he eventually brought him on, and people said he brought Connolly on too late. But Connolly, at that stage, had played a bit more Premier League, and I think from what I've seen of Connolly, I think I prefer him in a wider position. But Idah certainly makes you feel a lot more optimistic about Irish football going into the future, because we've never been able to replace Robbie Keane.
Yeah. Well, we'll be playing 4-2-4 by the looks of it if Michael Obafemi, Troy Parrott, Aaron Connolly and Idah continue on their progression. Yeah,
absolutely. And just say to the 6 players, outfield players behind them, you just mind shop and let these lads go and do their stuff.
Well, it actually brings up an interesting point that Keith Andrews made on O2BM earlier this week. He was saying that it's a danger for these players, the likes of Connolly, the likes of Parrott and Idah, who are on the fringes of a Premier League club. They're on the bench for the senior team, but they're not getting any senior minutes. But it also means they're not getting any minutes for the under-21s or reserves. So they end up progressing as players as the years goes on. And he said that actually happened to him. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think Connolly's ahead of the other players that we've mentioned because he's started Premier League games. Idah hasn't started a Premier League game. He got a couple of minutes against Crystal Palace, and obviously Troy Parrott got a bit of a run out against Burnley, but Connolly has actually started Premier League games. He has scored in a Premier League game, and so he's ahead of the others. I get what Keith is saying, and it's right that even think back to what Jose Mourinho said about Troy Parrott last week, where he was asked about the thoughts of Parrott replacing Harry Kane, and he said, it's too soon for him, but also at the same time we won't be loaning him out, because a lot of people would like to see Parrott go out on loan between now and the end of the season. He'd be 18 next month, and even looking at Leeds this week in the FA Cup, brilliant to watch, play brilliant football, don't score enough goals. So obviously they're top of the championship, they're doing something right, but what lets them down the odd time is they dominate games and they just don't score enough goals. But like Troy Parrott in a team like that, where they play really good football and it's not just hoofed up to them, they need a finisher. But it's not going to happen. I can understand what Mourinho was saying, where he thinks that it might be too soon to loan him out to the championship. And I don't think this is just a Jose Mourinho thing. I think if Pochettino was still in charge of Spurs, he'd have a similar enough approach. I know people often link Mourinho to not giving young players a chance, but I think it'd be a hell of a lot to ask for Troy Parrott to come in and replace Harry Kane, when you think back to last season, what they did, they just put Son in there and he played a blinder for them.
Well, I agree as well, and I don't think there are many managers in the Premier League at the minute that would be throwing a 17-year-old in at the deep end trying to replace one of the best strikers in the Premier League at the minute.
The stakes are too high.
But I wonder, is it down to Parrott to push for that loan, to push for game time? Because if you look at some of the other under-21s that are out on loan at the minute, Jason Malumbi's playing for Millwall, he's getting minutes on the clock for a solid championship team. And Conor Masterson, who pushed for a move away from Liverpool, he got his first start for QPR in the FA Cup. He hasn't really got much minutes in the championship as such, but in a 5-1 win at the weekend, you're thinking maybe he might get a chance now to start pushing for first team football as well. So I wonder, is it down to Parrott to try push for that loan?
Yeah, but I said he is only going to be 18 next month, and I know there's a giddiness and an excitement around, because when we see him play for the 21s, and you think back to the game against Sweden and Tala, where he had obviously made his senior debut against New Zealand, and then he comes in and hadn't trained with the 21s, and straight away he scores a goal. And I just think that you just have to be careful with him. That I can understand, obviously he'd been running amok in the Youth Champions League, and now he's been sitting on the bench in Champions League games. He was on the bench against Bayern Munich away, and you thought, is he going to get a run? He didn't. So, what's better for him? That he plays in the Youth League and runs amok, or gets to train with the first team and experience the whole match day, but then just sits on a bench and doesn't get any game time? It's still early days. I think he'll stay put in January and then maybe in the summer. But there is talk that he's going to sign the new deal. So Tottenham still obviously value him. They really rate him. And maybe that's a conversation to have in the summer between Jose Mourinho and Troy Parrott, where he just said, look, I'm going to go, might even go abroad. Yeah. Maybe he might fancy the Championship. Championship is quite a tough division in terms of the physicality. He's well able for it, but you look at some of the players that have gone over to, say, the Bundesliga. Reece Nelson scored for Arsenal. He had a good run in the Bundesliga. Obviously, Jadon Sancho has had a very impressive.
He's a key one.
Yeah,
but he definitely does need some sort of senior game time under his belt in the next couple of years, because if you watch him in the Youth Cup, it's like a man playing against boys. Yeah. Speaking of men playing against boys, we're going to turn to another game, the Merseyside derby. It was men against boys, and the boys come out on top.
Yeah, rarely that happens. I mean, we hear the cliche, it was men against boys, and it's used for a reason. So Jurgen Klopp has to be a winner. Obviously, everything he's doing at the moment is turning to gold, and there was a genuine feeling going into the Merseyside derby on Sunday. This is Everton's chance to get their first win at Anfield since 1999. You look at the two teams and you think, yeah, this is their chance. And to be fair to Everton, they were the better team in the first half, but they couldn't score a goal. And I'd say, Liverpool probably thought, right, we're scoreless at half-time. We've got nothing to lose here. Let's go out there and give it a crack in the second half. And they were so much better than Everton in the second half.
Well, they had an average age of 24, but to put that into context, Adrian, who's 33, Adam Lallana's 31, and James Milner is 34. That pushes it way up.
They've brought it right up, yeah.
The rest of the team, if you're looking at it, it's around about 21, 22 territory. But if you look at two of the players that are playing, Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott, their combined age is 34.
Yeah.
And they were two of the standout players in the game.
Yeah. Elliott, we saw a little bit of him with Fulham in the Premier League last season. It was a bit of a surprise that whatever about signing for Liverpool, that he didn't go back on loan to Fulham, because Scott Parker had said, I'd give him first team football, but he's quite happy to be at Liverpool, and you could see that he doesn't look out of place, and he's just going to get better. Curtis Jones showed earlier in the season that he doesn't lack confidence when he knocked in the winning penalty against Arsenal in the League Cup, and what a goal, like a Scouser to score a goal of that quality in a Merseyside derby. It was unbelievable, and I was very impressed with Nico Williams as well, the right back.
Yeah,
put in some good crosses. So maybe to be an academy right back, they must just send you out practice your crossing, because not quite at the Trent Alexander-Arnold level just yet, but he was very impressive. Yeah,
he played a great ball across the 6-yard box to Divock Origi, almost got into a sliding tackle as well, or a sliding shot. Harvey Elliott played a beautiful pass, left-footed into Origi as well, and Pickford pulled off a great save. But if you look at the Everton point of view, they're definitely going down as losers for this, because they had their full strength side out, and in the second half they looked like a team that were absolutely shook by the confidence of these Liverpool players.
Yeah, also as well, Liverpool pressed a lot better in the second half, and regardless of what team Klopp puts out, it's the same formation, it's the same mindset and the same tactics. So, mightn't have the same quality in terms of the players that they have out there. Now, they're still very good players, but the fact that they buy into what Klopp wants to do, and maybe that's something he said to them at half-time, you've got to start pressing more, and they just had Everton rattled from the start of the second half, and Everton never really recovered. And even when it went 1-0, you looked at some of the players that Everton were bringing on, and you just didn't really think. You're there looking at Moise Keane coming on, and he hasn't scored a goal yet, so you're kind of thinking, is this going to be the game? It wasn't. So maybe a bit of a reality check for Ancelotti. He would have started off pretty well, lost to Man City, but went down fighting against Man City. And I think a lot of Everton fans were confident they were going to get the job done, not only because of the teams that were put out, but Ancelotti had already beaten Liverpool and drawn with them as well last season, beat Liverpool as well, so had a knack of being able to beat Liverpool, but not to be the case.
Yeah, he didn't have the quality of players that Napoli had last year or this year, so that plays a big role in it. And Ancelotti, when he came in, I think it was his second press conference, said that he didn't really know some of the players coming in, but he was starting to get used to them now around the training ground. And against Liverpool, he looked like a man he had a look on his face of a man I didn't think this job was as big as it was.
Yeah.
In the second half, it certainly proved it. We're turning now to VAR, because last week we said that it was going to be on the losers list for the rest of the season, and it still kind of is, but Michael Oliver has changed things a little bit, because he used the screen monitors at the side of the pitch for the first time. It's been used in England. It's been used across Europe several times.
Yeah.
But how did you think it went?
Well, it makes sense, because he's the referee on the pitch, and he would have seen a certain amount of the incident, but then the screen is there, so he can look back.
Yeah.
And the reason he's in a better position to do it than somebody in an office somewhere else, he's got a feel for what's going on the pitch, and he was there when the incident happened. So that's why I think the referees should be using the monitors. And look, this is what we saw at the World Cup in 2018 in Russia. Now, there was a little preview of what might happen, where you can see Michael Oliver going over to the pitch side monitor in Sellers Park, and a few stewards have to move into place, because there's a few fans making their way down towards the monitor, just to let Michael Oliver maybe know what they think of what he should be looking at. But it doesn't look like it's going to lead to a load of referees in the Premier League using pitch side monitors. So at the moment he'll go down as a quiz question, but hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it was for Luka Milivojevic kicking out at Tom Huddleston. Tom Huddleston, classic centre mid, pinging the ball in from 35 yards out for Tottenham back in the day. Still going with Derby County.
No pace, but just lets the ball do the work.
Exactly. But the thing that I liked about it was a few weeks ago, Conor Cody for Wolves complained that the players were in the dark in the decision. They were just told it was a foul, it was an offside. The referee had no clarity of how far offside.
Which player?
Yeah, who it was, what went wrong, no clarity whatsoever. And in this game, Michael Oliver was able to bring Milivojevic to him, explain to him that he kicked at him, then he threw his head in. That's why he's getting sent off. That's why he's getting upgraded. And it just simplifies the whole thing.
And if Milivojevic turns around to Michael Oliver and said, "No, I didn't," he could just say, "I just saw you. I just watched it back myself. You did it." So that's what takes it away from the referees on the pitch in the Premier League, where they're basically just been told, "This is what's happening. Blow your whistle. Get on with it." And that you can see that's why the players are so frustrated and the managers, because there's no clarity there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no sort of sense of what's going on. It's someone else in another county in England making a decision, and the players are all in the dark. But we're moving on from VAR because we never want to spend too much time on it. It's going to be
one of the good things for VAR.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore. It's great. We're going to move on to Jose Mourinho now. We spoke about him a little bit earlier on. We were talking about Troy Parrott and the Irish team. Now this is the second week in a row he's gone down as a loser. He's now lost half of his games in charge of Tottenham and struggled against Middlesbrough at the weekend.
Yeah, and you know when Jose Mourinho was appointed Tottenham manager, people said, they've got a proven winner. And the thing is, Manchester United fans will remember that although Mourinho delivered a couple of trophies in his first season, he certainly didn't leave Old Trafford as a winner. And when Tottenham got him, there was a sense that, maybe he can turn it around. But looking at them, even over the Christmas period, just before it, they beat Wolves, but they didn't deserve to win that game. They beat Brighton. They were better in the second half in that game, but you just felt like they weren't clicking into gear, but they were getting results. But then Chelsea beat them. That would have hurt. Then they lost to Southampton as well. They just can't keep clean sheets. And you always associated Mourinho's title-winning teams with keeping clean sheets, but now you associate Mourinho teams in the last few years of not being able to keep clean sheets. And that was probably one of the main reasons why he's not getting to the heights that he once did, because it was always built on the foundation of you don't concede goals, then, you're not losing games, and you might draw the odd game, but if you're keeping clean sheets, you're going to win more. Yeah,
it's partly down to Gazzaniga nets, because he's not a top quality goalkeeper. But it's partly down to their defence being all over the place.
Lloris is there, is he going to make a huge difference?
He's a better shot stopper, but for the likes of corners or whatever like that, Lloris isn't the man you want. So it's hard to know, would they be doing better? Would they be keeping more clean sheets if Lloris was in goals? But I think it's more down to their defensive shape, because again, if you're looking at, I know the Middlesbrough goal, if VAR was there, it's going to be offside. But again, you're looking at the defence of Tottenham are not in line with each other. There's players further back than others, and that's why the forward got the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and look, it's a good finish and all from Fletcher, but the issue is, like Toby Alderweireld, for a few years now, we thought he was going to leave Tottenham. He gets his new deal now, but he's not the Toby Alderweireld that United were looking at a few years ago. Vertonghen has been playing as a left back because they've got issues there. Obviously, at right back, he's got Serge Aurier, who set up the goal for Lucas Moura. Great cross, but you just know that he's going to do something daft throughout the game. And then he's changed between 4 at the back, 3 at the back. So he's still not really sure what he's doing. And midfield is an issue. His most creative player doesn't want to be there. So he's got this dilemma of Christian Eriksen, where he's on the bench because Mourinho's probably thinking he doesn't really want to be here, so can I start him? But then he has to go and take him off the bench in most games because he realises that we need a creative spark.
One thing that never really made sense for me this year with Tottenham was selling Dembele in midfield. And I know Ndombele was seen as the player that would come in and replace him. Dynamic player, can get up and down the pitch, good going forward, but also good defensively. But Dembele was one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. I know Damien Delaney said that he was the best player he played against. So do you think they're sort of missing that one key midfielder? The likes of Harry Winks, he's not a Mourinho player, but he's not going to do the defensive work that Mourinho wants. So do you think maybe Victor Wanyama could come back in?
Yeah, but Victor Wanyama isn't Moussa Dembele either. Moussa Dembele is a proper footballer where you can't get the ball off him. Even he had this unbelievable knack where you think you're going to get the ball off him and he just rolls his body and he just gets away from you. But unfortunately, he just wasn't. He was picking up too many injuries and he probably just thought, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Maybe go to China where I can make a bit more money. And I know at the time when he left, there were Spurs fans that were disappointed because of the quality, but he wouldn't be able to play week in, week out. But yeah, they haven't replaced him with. I suppose they would have thought they were getting it with Ndombele. From what we saw of Ndombele playing for Lyon, he had the all-round game where he could play a bit. He was dynamic. He was physical as well. But Mourinho questioned him about his injury, and Ndombele plays, and then he gets injured.
Yeah, he's gone down as one of those scapegoats under this Mourinho reign already.
He wasn't in many people's pick for top of the list.
No. One of those players that was a scapegoat under Mourinho, Jesse Lingard. Or was he a scapegoat? Well, because now he has gone a full calendar year without scoring a goal or getting an assist from Manchester United, and he's gone down as a loser this week.
Lingard's best form at Manchester United was under Mourinho. It was that little spell where he was known as Messi Lingard, and he was scoring goals. Do you remember that goal he scored away at Watford, where he ran half the pitch at Vicarage Road?
Yeah.
And it was a game where United were a couple of goals up. Ashley Young scored a great goal in that game as well. And Watford had got one back. Pressure's on. Messi Lingard just comes up, runs the pitch and scores. And it was you forget how annoying his celebrations were because he doesn't score goals anymore. But yeah,
he's the exact type of player that encapsulates modern football, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I know he's on social media, and there's a general feeling that you can only be on social media if you're playing well.
Well, that's it, and it's
go on social media if you're not playing well.
It's a bit daft as well, and I know Solskjaer kind of had a go at him in his press conference yesterday ahead of this City game tonight about his social media use. He said that he's got his head down, he's working hard, and there's a piece in the Daily Mail a few weeks ago about some personal issues that he's having. His mum has fallen ill and he's been looking after his siblings, and obviously that's not easy. And he spoke to Solskjaer about it. Solskjaer said to him, just get your head down. We want to get back to the form that you had last year. But is that form good enough for Manchester United to progress? Is the Jesse Lingard that we saw scoring those goals good enough for Manchester United to be challenging for top four?
No, I think if United were at the top end of the table, there would be no room for someone like Jesse Lingard in the starting 11. Maybe it's a squad player where you've got European games, but if you're at the top end of the Premier League, you're playing Champions League football as well. And yeah, that's always been my feeling with Lingard, that he's got pace and he can be effective on the break, but he's not consistent enough. And ask yourself this: how many of the top four teams in the Premier League at the moment would Lingard get into? Zero.
None.
Like, you can't even make a case for it.
No, definitely not in the last year or so. And he was good against Man City and he was good against Tottenham, but that's the best we've seen of him.
Yeah.
He was good against Arsenal at the beginning of the season, but apart from that, he's too inconsistent, and his performances haven't been good enough when he has been playing. So he's gone down as a loser this week.
Yeah.
I can't see him getting back into a consistent run of form for United, getting into the starting team as a consistent member if United boost their midfield, and they are looking for a player that would be taking up his position.
Also as well, the story going around this week that he's linked up with Raiola, which you don't link up with him unless you're looking for a move away, because he's the man to broker it for you.
Yeah, and
he doesn't take you on if you're not moving.
That was just a week after Raiola came out and said that he would never bring a player to Man United again after the Pogba situation. So it's definitely not looking good for his Manchester United career. He might move to a club like Everton, Sheffield United.
Everton are
the perfect suit for Jesse Lingard.
But Everton have too many players where on their day they're brilliant, but they're not doing it enough. So signing players like Lingard, they were linked, even Everton were linked with Rabiot as well from Juventus. He falls into that category where when things are going well,
he can do it. He can do it on his day.
Yeah, but look at all those players at Anfield on Sunday when things weren't going well. Walcott was the prime example. Good in the first half, then when the going got tough in the second half, had an absolute shocker and was taken off.
Yeah, I said it a few years ago when Richarlison was playing for Watford that he's the exact kind of player that Everton will sign for big money. He'll do great for a couple of games and then he'll be just hot and cold. And it's turned out to be true. And it's going to be the same for Jesse Lingard if Everton are the club that he goes to eventually. I genuinely can see Jesse Lingard, can picture him in that blue of Everton.
Yeah, well, and it's not far from where he lives.
It gives another reason for Liverpool fans to hate him.
I think, to be honest, Liverpool fans have other things to worry about, that they're not even concerned about Everton and Manchester United anymore.
Yeah, well, he's creeping to the 30. He's not so young anymore, that boy Jesse Lingard. Yeah. We're going to run through a couple of quick ones now to finish off. Tom Pope.
Yeah, speaking of social media, so Tom Pope is the Port Vale striker who scored against Manchester City. They lost 4-1, but he got a lot of traction on Twitter before the game because he had written back in June of last year when he was watching England lose to the Netherlands in the Nations League. He wrote, "I know I'm a League 2 player. I know he plays for England. I know he's on 150 grand a week. I know he's a million times better player than me, but I'd love to play against John Stones every week. I'd get 40 a season." So he scores. And then after the game, he said, "I'd just like to say I was completely wrong. I'm bang out of order to say I'd score 40 a season. It was more like 50. So Tom Pope thought he was living the dream. You know, Benjamin Mendy wants a selfie with him for his WhatsApp group after the game. And, you know, this is all great banter for Tom Pope. But then later on that night, this is when he goes from hero to zero. And somebody had tweeted him saying, "Please predict the World War III result, you king." And then he replied with something that was seen or could be seen as anti-Semitic, and then came back on saying, "I don't know what's wrong with this tweet," but then deleted it, and the FA are investigating it as well. And also apologised, but it was one of those, sorry if I caused offence, but sorry, not really sorry.
Yeah, that's falls into the football banter category of social media that is just a little bit desperate at this
He also had a pop at... He's been warned on Twitter before. I know he also had a go at Cantwell from Norwich as well. So doesn't seem like the nicest chap. No. Well, he's definitely going down as a loser this week. Another loser is Joelinton, the Newcastle striker, who just can't seem to score a goal. No. 1 goal in 22 games. He cost 40 million. They got him... and they play him against League One strugglers Rochdale. So Steve Bruce is probably thinking, could be a few goals in here. If he scores, then, you know, this will give him a bit of confidence, because he looks so short of confidence. He had a couple of chances, didn't score, and now Steve Bruce is in a situation, what do I do? Now, in fairness to Joelinton, when he was banging in goals, you know, whether it was for Rapid Vienna or Hoffenheim, he was playing he had a strike partner. He's very isolated at Newcastle. He's not the quickest, but he is strong. If you had somebody up around him, maybe you get the best out of him. But I'm just wondering if Steve Bruce is going to decide enough is enough and he's going to bench him. And then does he become one of these guys that in 3 years' time you're watching a Europa League game and you're seeing this guy, geez, he looks good. He's just scored a cracker, and it's Joelinton. You know, remember him? Yeah. Andy Carroll's been playing pretty well when he's come on for Newcastle. Got a couple of assists. Yeah. Is it a case where Steve Bruce might want to stick a bit of fire underneath Joelinton and start Andy Carroll benching for the next game? Yeah, I mean, you can start Andy Carroll all you like, but give it a few weeks and he'll be injured. Yeah, well, that's it. He's actually doing well for himself now. He's keeping fit for the time being, but he's also only playing like 6 minutes a game, so that's probably why. Get injured.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't move enough to get injured as well. Sticking with the FA Cup, last night, Arsenal narrow victors against Leeds, but Marcelo Bielsa, he's gone down as a winner this week because that was a brilliant performance from Leeds.
Yeah, first half, 15 attempts on goal, hit the crossbar. If you would tune into that game and you're told this is a Premier League team against the Championship team, you presumed Leeds were the Premier League team. And this wasn't a kids team that Arsenal put out. You could see after the game what it meant to Mikel Arteta, who's won the Cup with Arsenal before. And Leeds were just brilliant. But Leeds do this where they dominate teams. They probably just don't score enough goals. They've got a 9-point cushion in the Championship. They should be okay to get into the Premier League. But last night was a little snippet of what's to come, where they're going to be playing only one way, and that's the Bielsa way. And also as well, if they get into the Premier League and they have a bit of money, players will want to play for them.
Yeah, it's a big club.
A striker. They need to get Troy Parrott.
Well, he'll be replacing another Irish striker, Patrick Bamford.
So, well, is he an Irish striker?
Not anymore. But yeah, Marcelo Bielsa's stock is definitely rising again. Yeah. And I saw Miguel Delaney was writing today that around about 15 teams by his measurement in the Premier League are not as well coached as this Leeds team. Top of the head, he's probably close enough with that estimation. Yeah. Manchester United stick out.
No, you can press. Most teams are trying to press now, but there's efficiency as well and tactical pressing. And Arteta said it after the game, where he talked to his players at half time, and he just said they couldn't cope with not being pressed by one player, 2, 3, just on you, make you panic. Socrates, he needed that half-time whistle. He was blowing hard because he had obviously had to fill in as a right back, and at one stage he tried to slow the game down. He didn't take a free kick quickly and the Arsenal fans booed him, but he needed to take a few deep breaths because it was that relentless from Leeds at times.
Well, it's another sign of things to come under Arteta as well, that maybe there's a new steel coming under his reign at Arsenal. And finally, we're going to finish off with a foreign story. A European Italian return to Serie A. Antonio Conte and Romelu Lukaku, they're going down as winners this week because they beat Napoli away for the first time since 1997, and Lukaku scored his 14th goal in 18 games. Yeah,
he scored 2 goals, and first one in particular is very good, where, takes the ball, carries a good finish off the post. Second one, Mere, the keeper, makes an absolute pig's ear of it. But they're top of the league. As you said, they ended that record against Napoli, and just the little bit of icing on the cake for Antonio Conte. Chelsea, well, Conte obviously would have known this, but Chelsea released their accounts and they paid out £26 million to Conte and his coaching staff when he left.
That'll pay for plenty designer shoes for Italy, for Milan. I'm sure he's got plenty of them going, and plenty of suits to follow that as well.
He always looks sharp, in fairness to him.
He does. The hair transplant did absolute wonders.
Do you know what? I look at it in awe.
He should be the poster boy for hair transplants because that was a success story.
Yeah, him, David Silva.
Yeah.
They're definitely, Jurgen Klopp's up there as well.
Yeah.
And obviously the losers of that so far would be Wayne Rooney. And most recently I saw, actually watching the darts, Raymond van Barneveld.
Wayne Rooney did it too early. He got in there before it was good.
Yeah. But Anthony Stokes got a good job as well.
He did. There's Carl Lacey got a really good job as well. So
I mean, I really should invest.
Any chance of you getting them?
No. Could you imagine I walked into the office?
Luscious.
Just took a few weeks off in the summer and just walked in as if nothing had happened.
I'd love to see you with
myself and Richie McCormack, just one day, the two of us putting our fingers through our hair. Just No, I'm okay.
One of you are secretly ginger, that's all I know. Anyway, that's all we have time for on Winners and Losers. We'll be back again next week when we'll be going through our winners and losers from the Premier League weekend. Thank you.